Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and aloha. On behalf of the Consulate General of Japan in Honolulu, I have the great honor of welcoming you to this Japan-U.S. joint ceremony, a tribute to the fallen of Pearl Harbor. At this time, I would like to ask you to please remain seated and join me for a moment of silence. Mokto. Thank you very much. May I ask you to rise for the national anthems of the United States and Japan. Thank you. You may be seated. I would now like to invite this morning's hosts to offer their remarks. May I ask, first of all, Consul General of Japan in Honolulu, Mr. Yutaka Aoki, to please come forward to the podium.
Admiral Patron, Rear Admiral Kott, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Behind me, the waters of Pearl Harbor stand serene, as it did that fateful Sunday in early December, 80 years ago. Just moments before sudden airstrike leapt through the quiet of the morning, destroying battleships, hotel and aircraft, clusters and vicinity, and taking the lives of so many. The horror utterly indescribable for those who would witness its firsthand. As the Consul General of Japan of Honolulu, I humbly offer my deepest, most heartfelt condolences for the fallen here at Pearl Harbor. Today's joint ceremony, which had its humble beginnings as a small service at a local Buddhist temple, became an official event in 2016, created as an opportunity to honor and pay tribute to more than 2,400 American service members and civilians, as well as the 56 Japanese aviators and 9 Japanese submariners who perished in the December 7th attack. With the backing and support of various Japanese and American organizations, as well as veteran groups here in our local community, this event was born of a simple idea, yet as we gather here together, let us take a moment to fully grasp its significance, its meaning, for it serves as yet another remarkable reminder of just how far we have come as two nations, two peoples, where once we were enemies of a fierce war. The stage for its creation was set in the momentum of a history spanning the last more than 7.5 decades. From an act of compassion by the U.S. servicemen who gave a downed Japanese fighter pilot in Kaneohe a proper burial, even erecting a memorial in his honor, which is still maintained carefully till this day, or by the USS Missouri's wartime captain, who directed his crew to perform a Navy funeral for a kamikaze pilot who attacked his ship in the Battle of Okinawa. To the blackened canton ritual began by a Japanese priest after a B-29 airstrike over Shizuoka, for the deceased crew members of 2 bombers and for the victims of the raid. Through the exchange of handshakes and hugs between war veterans of both sides, which reflected individual testaments of courage inspired by tolerance, compassion, and the desire for peace. The building upon of this newly forged friendship, the government-to-government diplomacy, and the combined work of countless many who work towards the strengthening of the bilateral relations between the U.S. and Japan, and of course, in solidifying of the U.S.-Japan alliance. And so the foundation was laid for that momentous year, 2016. How can we never forget those history-making moments when the leaders of our two nations together visited the USS Arizona Memorial at the 75th anniversary of Pearl Harbor to make their respects. And later, when in a joint statement, Prime Minister Abe expressed his gratitude towards the U.S. for its purposeful kindness and tolerance, while President Obama stated that if the deep wounds of the war could be transformed into a friendship and enduring peace. The two leaders emphasized the power of reconciliation, a once almost seemingly unreachable destination, to which a path was paved by those who boldly dared to have a greater vision for humanity, one that far surpasses the stagnant realms of conflict and contempt and hatred brought on by a devastating war. We often commemorate, quote or unquote, milestones in the sense of 5 years or 10 years or even 50. But every day of every year of every decade is an important milestone in our ongoing commitment to upholding the peace and building upon the foundation of the U.S.-Japan alliance, which is deeply rooted in our shared common value of liberty and democracy, and which stands as the cornerstone of peace and stability in this region. Today, as I stand here on these banks, I am certain now, more than ever, of the presence of the power of reconciliation and the vast magnitude of its reaches. And it is my sincerest wish that the people of our two nations continue to stand together in friendship and fully embrace the meaning and significance of this power and the promise and possibilities it holds. And that when we pass the torch to the younger generations, that they too will firmly grasp it and build upon the solid foundation of security and stability, which was cemented into place over the decades. To ensure that peace will continue to be theirs and their children and grandchildren to enjoy. I want to thank all of you for joining us this morning here at the Japan-US Joint Memorial Ceremony, Lives Remembered, our tribute to the fallen of Pearl Harbor, which the Consul General of Japan is deeply honored to be able to co-host once again with the Navy Region Hawaii. I want to also send a special mahalo to Admiral Papalo. Your presence today here at this ceremony is in itself another true testament of the solid alliance of our two nations and the distance we have journeyed over the last 8 decades to get to where we are now. May the world someday come to remember Pearl Harbor, not just as a place where fierce war began, but as a powerful symbol of the reconciliation and friendship which ensued and the limitless potential they hold in our collective quest for a better future. Thank you very much. マハロの色はどうもありがとうございました。If you allow me, I would like to take this moment to speak directly to the souls of fallen of Pearl Harbor in both Japanese and English about what I have just expressed in my remarks. 愛する祖国を守るため、家族の幸せを願いながら勇敢に戦場に赴き、そして倒れた皆様、今、御霊の御前にあって、御霊安かれと心よりお祈り申し上げます。今日、日米両国は自由世界の強力な同盟国として、インド太平洋、そして世界の安全のため、肩を並べて働いています。今日、我々が享受している平和と繁栄は、皆様の尊い命の犠牲の上に築かれたものであることを、私たちは決して忘れません。改めて衷心より、敬意と感謝の念を捧げます。To the soul of the fallen, to protect the country you love, while holding close your hopes of happiness for your families, you bravely threaded the battlefield, took to the seas and to the skies, and made the ultimate sacrifice. I humbly offer my heartfelt prayers for your repose. Today, the United States and Japan are able to stand together as a member of the free world and work shoulder to shoulder as a powerful allies to strengthen the security of the Indo-Pacific region and beyond. Thank you very much. どうもありがとうございました。
Thank you, Consul General L. I would now like to ask Commander of the U.S. Navy Region Hawaii, Rear Admiral Timothy J. Kott, to please approach the podium to offer his remarks.
Admiral, Consul General Aoki, distinguished guests, members of our Japanese American community, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Consul General Aoki, my dear friend. We appreciate you and your team, and we thank you for leading this important tribute to the fallen of Pearl Harbor. Ohayou gozaimasu, minasama. Today, on this beautiful day, in this solemn location, is a culmination of a series of commemorations this week that gives us the opportunity to contemplate what happened here on Oahu 8 decades ago. More importantly, these events allow us to remember and honor all those who we lost in the Second World War. And as we gather here at this special place, today is also a day to reflect, to consider how much the world has changed over the past 80 years, to embrace the bonds of cooperation and friendship forged between our nations, and to recognize the peace and stability and prosperity we are pledged to defend. And that pledge is rooted in a base of our country's common values. Thinking of others, to notice others, moirari, tolerance, generosity, not giving up, maximum effort, ganburu, enduring efforts, gaman. Those are what unite us as peaceful nations, preserving the international norm that our children and our children's children can grow up in a peaceful world. Since the end of the far-reaching conflict that gripped our world in 1945, the vastness of the Pacific Ocean seems to have only grown smaller. New threats to peace and stability have emerged, and most fortunately, new connections have emerged from former adversaries. Our nation's interests are intertwined, and the United States, Japan, are closer than ever before. Indeed, the alliance between the U.S. and Japan is a cornerstone of peace and prosperity and security in the region, and this makes it a crucial alliance in the world for the 21st century. By virtue of our demonstrated combined strength and commitment to each other, we show enduring support of a free and open Indo-Pacific. It has become a common sight to see ships of the Kaijo, JIT, the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force, visit Pearl Harbor. Over the past few months, we've had 3 vessels enjoy the hospitality of the islands, where our forces have carried out mutually beneficial training. And even in 2020, despite the pandemic, during the height of that pandemic, ships of the JMS DF participated in the biannual Rim of Pacific exercise, otherwise known as RIPPAC, which brings together navies of many nations to the Hawaiian waters for combined maritime operations. Now, plans are underway for RIMPAC and the return of the fleets in 2022, and I'm sure the crews of the Japanese ships that will participate look forward to being able to enjoy the import activities that have traditionally been one of the highlights and build camaraderie between our service members. RIMPAC is a good example of the friendship and cooperation that exists between our 2 nations. It's an exercise that supports a strong and visible military presence among our partners and allies. It is vital to bring peace and stability while deterring conflict. It goes beyond just training. It's the Navy, U.S. Navy, and the JMSDF working side by side in disaster relief, humanitarian missions, combating piracy, assisting mariners in distress on the high seas, and providing maritime security in the Western Pacific and throughout the world. So today, we honor the sacrifice of those who were touched by the tragedy of this war. Today, we embrace the evolution of a partnership of peace between Japan and the United States that is a cornerstone of global security. Today, we continue our mutual commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific. And today, we stand ready, together, resolute and determined. Thank you for attending today and remembering the sacrifice the ultimate sacrifice of those who paid for today's peace and prosperity. And thank you for your determination to preserve it as our committed partners. Thank you very much. Mahalo nui loa. Domo arigato gozaimasu.
Thank you, dear Admiral Kott.
Next, I would like to introduce this morning's keynote speaker, Ms. Alyssa Lines, Executive Director of the Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum.
Good morning, everyone. Aloha. I am truly honored to be here today to participate in this powerful ceremony, a testament to the impact that each of us as individuals can generate. My thanks to Consul General Aoki and to Admiral Kott for continuing this amazing tradition, celebrating peace and recognizing the courageous acts of humanity that inspire all of us. Senator Frank Moss, in his 1972 dedication of the USS Utah Memorial, captured the aspiration. All of us hope and pray that the time will come when we no longer need to dedicate memorials to men who died in battle, that we will dedicate memorials to those who live in peace, to all nations and all men. Regardless of what may be said in anger, in the heat of combat, or even casually, warriors respect brave adversaries for their courage, for their loyalty and devotion to country. We are all citizens of countries we love. We understand and accept that we don't get to choose our enemies, our battles, or our fate. We carry out our duty and hope for a favorable outcome. It was during the 50th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1991, when the actions of individual veterans, Japanese and American, began the process of healing. John DiVirgilio observed that it took fully as much courage for aging American and Japanese fighting men and their families to come forward to meet each other in friendship as it took for them to go to war. I would guess that no one attending that reunion in 1991 could have imagined the joint visit to Pearl Harbor by President Obama and Prime Minister Abe in 2016. It was indeed a historic moment. Standing on this spot, we can't help but mourn the falling of both countries, remembering that the sacrifice they made rippled through their own families, their communities, and their country. However, from this vantage point, we can also look at the battleship Missouri, upon whose death the military leaders of the Allied forces came together to declare their commitment to peace and understanding. General MacArthur himself proclaimed, "It is my earnest hope, and indeed the hope of all mankind, that from this solemn occasion a better world shall emerge out of the blood and carnage of the past, a world founded upon faith and understanding, a world dedicated to the dignity of man and the fulfillment of his most cherished wish for freedom, tolerance, and justice." My work at the Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum and my interaction with many of you here today forms the foundation of my own belief in the power of individuals to make change. In the midst of the horrors of war, there are unforgettable stories of deeply rooted courage, fueled by a common thread, a sense of humanity that ultimately makes mankind one. This is a story I believe that Consul General Aoki mentioned in his own words. Over the objections of crewmen, USS Missouri Captain Willem Callahan, on April 11, 1945, directed his sailors to extend a respectful burial at sea to the Japanese pilot who perished in a kamikaze attack on his ship. An attack that put his entire crew in jeopardy. Captain Callahan, who had himself experienced the loss of a brother in this war, felt that it was important to honor a soldier, a fellow soldier, who made the ultimate sacrifice while fighting for his country, a courage he deeply respected. Yet another example of humanitarian courage in wartime is the incredible story of the blackened canteen. Japanese civilian Mr. Fukumatsu Ito of Shizuoka, Japan, helped retrieve and bury the bodies of 23 American airmen who perished in a mid-air collision during the bombing of his entire town. He, like Captain Callahan, was roundly condemned for his deference toward the enemy during wartime. Both courageous leaders persevered, driven by a shared sense of the sanctity of life that stands above all else. Regardless of the circumstances that pit one man, one nation against another, are we not all responsible for the collective betterment of humanity? As the years pass, these lessons become even more poignant. Maya Angelou said it best: history, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, but if faced with courage, need not be lived again. This ability to lead with conscience must be taught. The road to global peace and reconciliation that followed World War II is proof that the lessons of our past can inspire new attitudes. Dwight D. Eisenhower stated, "Freedom has its life in the hearts, the actions, the spirit of men, so it must be daily earned and refreshed. Else, like a flower cut from its life-giving roots, it will wither and die." This is the message of our World War II veterans and all service members who followed. Bruce Norton, a noted author who shared the horrors of war, commented, "Combat is fast, unfair, cruel, and dirty. It is meant to be that way, so that the terrible experience is branded into the memory of those who are fortunate to survive. It is up to those survivors to ensure that the experience is recorded and passed along to those who might just think they want to try it again." In closing, again, thank you, Consul General Oki and Admiral Kott, for participating in building upon the international commitment to protecting peace and promoting global friendship. If we work together, we can multiply our impact as individuals, ensuring that our next generation, those destined to lead our future, understand their responsibility to lead with conscience, finding alternate solutions to conflict that protect our shared belief in the sanctity of life. I am reminded of the vision shared by the students from Nagaoka, who joined our community in 2016 for the 75th commemoration of the attack on Pearl Harbor. Those young students brought forward a vision of exploding acts of humanity, symbolized by the amazing fireworks display that they shared with our community. We actually did that right here on Ford Island. With wisdom beyond their years, these students, living in the hometown of Admiral Yamamoto, understood that this commitment to peace and friendship requires the courageous actions of all. I'll end with a short quote from President Roosevelt. "If civilization is to survive, we must cultivate the science of human relationships, the ability of all peoples, of all kinds, to live together in the same world at peace." Mahalo nui.
Thank you, Ms. Lines. We will now proceed to the brief presentation by the representatives of the United States and Japan. May I ask Rear Admiral Kott and Consul General Aoki to please come forward. This concludes this morning's ceremony. Thank you very much for your kind attendance.